Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We're a little glitchy this morning. Let's see if I can find myself live. And let's see who's going to jump on. So, hello. It is Catherine Massell. Hi, Lenore. Elevated consciousness coach, New Earth visionary. How you doing? Welcome to the weekend. Happy Friday. Let's see if I can pull back a little bit. Too close. I can see better. I can see the comments better with this a little further away. Thanks so much for being here today and giving me a little chunk of your Friday to talk about something I think is really important, super important. Let's see who's going to jump on here. Let me know you're here. Don't be shy. If you're watching in the replay, hit #replay. So, quick announcements. Yes, I am Catherine Massell. Yes, I am an elevated consciousness coach. Yes, I am a New Earth visionary and thought leader. And yes, I am the teacher of a very powerful program called In Alignment. Hi, Jeffrey. Can you not hear me? I'm going to make sure you can hear me. Let me see. Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, so I'm going to back out of there because otherwise we'll have feedback that I don't want. So, yes, I am the teacher of a very powerful program called In Alignment and Thriving. This 3-month program is going to be starting up again on March 10th. This is a program that helps you establish the emotional intelligence to align with the New Earth timeline and with the core truth of who you are underneath all the layers, the levels of false selves, the ways of being that you have outgrown. This is a very, very powerful and pivotal program, and it goes deep. This work is deep, and the last day to get it at early bird pricing is the 28th of this month. Again, we go live with week 1 of this program on March 10th. It's an 11-week program. I've added 2 new modules for this time around. The early bird price, if you join now, gives you $300 off the full price. So come in and join us. This is an incredibly powerful program. So one of the reasons why, thank you, Jeffrey, thanks for the heads up. One of the reasons why I love teaching this program is because we get to talk about things and go deep into things that really, really matter and affect your daily, everyday life, like being able to make conscious choices. And I think that there's a lot of things that get bandied about in the spiritual awakening community, a lot of buzzwords, buzz phrases, etc. I think conscious choices in the coaching world is something that's not explained very well. And sometimes we use words or phrases as, descriptive language in this business and in the coaching world and the spiritual awakening community. And there's a deficit sometimes in understanding that maybe not everyone gets what that means. And so, those of us who are worth their salt in the coaching or mentoring world are the ones who are really adept at being able to explain things and have them land with people where they're at, right? Because otherwise all this stuff is just academic, it's just interesting. But I have a very practical, tangible, hands-on, every day in the world type approach to awakening and enlightenment. It's got to be practical. It's got to land with you. You have to be able to use it. It has to be accessible, in other words. And it really is part of my passion and inspiration to make this journey of aligning with the New Earth timeline, moving into our next progression of spiritual evolution, human evolution, with some grounded principles, with some real tactical stuff in our toolbox. Otherwise, we're floundering and we're not living up to the highest level of our gifts, and we're not really answering to why we're here, what we're supposed to be, not supposed to be, but what we can be, realizing as the fullness of our potential. We can't really recognize this unless we're in the fullness of who we are, right? So when we are approaching things from a level of wholeness, we are able to make conscious choices. So let's talk about what conscious choices are. What is a conscious choice? In my estimation, a conscious choice is a choice that you make from the fullness of you. Meaning you are operating from the full scope of who you are. You're not leaving any part out of the decision process, in other words. When you are faced with any kind of choice, challenge, decision, trigger, an opportunity to respond, right? Or even in some situations where we're caught unawares, to react, okay? Hopefully part of this human evolution is that we move away from reaction and being reactionary and into a place of being able to respond, being responsive. And so when we're in those moments, it could be any single thing in the world. It could be something that's not so challenging. It could be, the one of those choices that we make throughout the day of our lives and our everyday reality. It might be something as simple as being able to pick out something in the grocery store. You've got maybe 5 different kinds of chicken noodle soup in front of you, 5 different brands, 5 different levels of sodium, 5 different ingredient lists, and being able to look at that and say, okay, from the fullness of me, from the wholeness of who I am, taking in all perspectives of who I am and all vantage points, what's the best soup to choose? And I know that sounds like a silly example, but we can't hope to progress forward in this timeline and leave any parts out. And we talked about this, my good friend and I, Becky Gerard Schoonover, we did an amazing talk last week. We talked about this idea that, we are who we are in our everyday lives, right? You're never not being human, right? You got to do things. You got to brush your teeth. You got to take out the garbage. You got to go grocery shopping and buy chicken noodle soup, right? When we continue to leave out parts of self and we think that spiritual evolution is actually moving away from our human, I will tell you that you've got it wrong. That's an incorrect assessment. You're becoming more human. You're just becoming the human that was always meant to be expressed, the fullness of you, the part of you that is, yes, progressing into a lighter state of being. We're moving out of density, the densities of being a human in judgment, being a human experiencing such, abstract degrees of division and separation. We're moving away from that part. But we're never not human. And in fact, if we're really honest, this is our entire filter of experience. You're never not experiencing your spiritual evolution or whatever you think that is without this human vessel as the conveyance for it. It is your filter. It never stops being your filter, right? So why would we try to negate it? And yet here we can do that sometimes in the spiritual community. This is where I feel like there's a huge deficit in understanding. We're not moving away from our human. We might be moving away towards certain human tendencies that have not been very wholesome, but we're never not human, okay? So when you are making those little, what you would think of as mundane, everyday choices, you're still working with, or can be working with, several different vantage points of who you are. You're working with that vantage point of view that is the ego, right? That is built and programmed literally to survive, to perpetuate the species. But you're also looking at everything through the lens of your higher self. I call it your God self, your master, in other words. The part of you that descended from a much higher vibration and decided to participate in this human game of polarity down here on planet Earth. Yes, you were chosen, you were selected, you decided to participate in that, okay? That's some master level shit, because not everyone wants to come down from a higher vibration or higher frequency of who they are and experience the duality, polarity, and contrast of this reality realm that we call 3D planet Earth, even though at this point we're moving more towards 4D, really. But still tons of duality, tons of contrast. It takes an evolved soul to say yes to something like that. So give yourself a little pat on the back right there. So when you are presented with a choice, a decision, any decision, great or small, you have the opportunity to work with, hi Angela, all different vantage points of view. But are you willing to do that? Because the most informed decisions, the most conscious decisions, in other words, are the ones you make from the fullness of self. Conscious choices are choices, decisions that you make from the fullness, the wholeness, the totality of who you are. This does take some practice. But it's like anything else. You do it until you become it, right? We are going to have to practice at being better humans. This is the task that's laid out in front of us. This is literally spiritual evolution, to become better humans. And to become better humans, more evolved humans, directly rolled into that, related to that, is our ability to make higher and better, more informed choices. Does this make sense? Is this landing with you so far before I go deeper into this and take you further down the rabbit hole? We can look at the last 2 years, 3 years down here on planet Earth. And we can see, if we were to imagine ourselves, put ourselves in our God self perspective, where we're almost looking at everything laid out, all the moving pieces of what's happening down here on planet Earth, almost like you're watching it through drone footage. This really helps you to get out of ego, by the way. This is a super quick and easy, quick and dirty trick to help you make more conscious choices. Just move your perspective. Imagine yourself looking at the situation from a drone footage perspective. This can be really helpful. And it's not pejorative like you're looking down on something. It's not meant to be that at all. It's just meant to give you the higher vantage point, the higher perspective. See all the moving pieces at play. This allows you immediately to move into objective observer mode. And anytime you inhabit objective observer mode, you're able to look at all the moving parts in a place where you're objective, you can remain kind of neutral, you can maintain a kind of stillness about it, you can see how the pieces interact without being directly involved in it and be the subjective observer, because this will always give you the vantage point of ego and little more than that, usually. Does that make sense? So I can't see any comments here, so I just want to make sure that you guys hear me and see me and all that good stuff. And to everyone who's joining, hello. So when you do this, what you're doing is accessing a higher vantage point of view. I call it the God self perspective. You can call it higher self, whatever you need to. Objective observer, compassionate witness energy would be another way to say it. When you are able to put yourself in that perspective and see all the things happening in the world, the world, the template of everyday being here that's kind of rife with division and separation and othering, right? That's really rampant and rabid in our human family and the community that is at this point. It's a rather ugly thing to see and to witness. But when we can put ourselves in that vantage point of, well, what if I was just kind of looking at everything laying out? And what if I was just kind of reviewing it and not needing to relive it or not need to be in a place where I have to judge it or edit it or critique it or anything? What if I could just be with it, right? When we're able to look at the world right now at large and things playing out in the collective and be able to do that, it helps you to grasp and grapple with why certain people make the kind of decisions that they do. Why people hold fast to certain ways of being that maybe can come across as very unwholesome, create more separation, create more division, etc., 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 you can start to see, and again, in an objective, kind of neutral way, maybe certain things at work, how dots are connected, how one thing can lead to another. And that allows us to see kind of the bigger shadow games being played, agendas, etc. Again, doesn't mean you have to judge it. It just means you can witness it and say, okay, I see perhaps why that group of people or that person is acting this way, because that kind of feeds this agenda or feeds into this timeline or way of being over here, right? We still don't have to judge it, okay? We can do the same thing. We can employ the same kind of tactic with how we look at our everyday choices, our everyday decisions that we're making about life, about living life, about what our role is in it, about how we are a player in our own game of life, because we're all playing our own game of life. We're on a collective level, on a planetary level, playing a big collective game. But individually, we've got our own little playground that we're playing with ourselves ultimately. But we think we're playing a game or having a relationship with, all these things that we experience as our external reality. But you're never experiencing anything external, because everything about experience is an internal relationship. That's why you can have a diversity of different feelings, ways of being, behaviors on planet Earth, because everyone is playing a different game with themselves. Everyone is having a different relationship, in other words, with themselves, because they're deciding from an inner standpoint what kind of relationship they want to be having with themselves, and by extension, they're going to be having that kind of relationship with the rest of the world. And how they experience that is very individual, because it's based on our own individual vantage point, our own individual perspective. That's why we have such a vast array of experiences, opinions, beliefs, systems, structures, etc., ways of being, behaviors here on planet Earth. Because we've all got our individuated thread of consciousness through which is our filter, our perception for everything that we think of as the outside world. So we're only and ever going to be able to have the ability to make conscious choices in our own life when we're taking all the things that I'm talking about here into account. Now, that might sound like a lot. That might sound like, oh shit, that's a tall order, Catherine. Hold up. I got enough shit to think about every day. I got this over here. I have my list of to-do things. I got these tasks. I have commitments I need to make for myself and for other people. I got kids. All of these things are true, and I'm not trying to discount any of the things that we need to take on in our everyday life. But I want to ask you, because this is how we get to the nitty-gritty of this. This is the real wrinkle here. How important are you to you? How much are you correlating how you have an exchange with, how you interact with, how you interface with your external reality? How much do you correlate that with how you are interfacing with yourself in the entirety of you, who you are, what makes you tick, what your values are, what you prize, what you're not available for, what you've unhooked from or opted out of, ways of being, maybe even ways of thinking, ways of believing. How much are you taking the totality of all of this into account when you make decisions in your life? Do you even know who you really are? Have you taken a full inventory of what gives you meaning? And what gives you meaning are the things that I just listed and rattled off. What makes you tick? In other words, what do you love? What does it feel like when you have a sense of purpose? And your sense of purpose is not something you do. That's secondary. It's not a vocation. It's not a job. It's not a career. Your purpose is who you be. Your purpose is literally the energetic that you ripple out from you because of how you showcase your values, how you live in alignment with your principles, your ethics, what you believe in, what you hold dear and precious to you, what you value, what you don't value, what makes you cringe, what you really dislike or have learned to opt out of in your own life, and learn how to evolve out of certain self-negating behaviors or ways of being, or self-denying behaviors. How much does all of that contribute to give your life meaning? And if you are constantly making choices that align with what gives you meaning, what you're really saying is it's taking you in the direction of where you want to go. Rolled up in this idea of what gives you meaning is also, what do you desire? What do you want out of life? What lights you up? What brings you passion? What allows you to feel present in your joy? Do you even know what gives you joy? I had a client in my In Alignment program the other day, and in my Strong Supported Healer program as well, both remark on, you know what, as I've been doing this journaling work, I realized I don't know what gives me joy. That's why journaling work is so important, by the way. And I'm going to have a video coming up about how journaling is actually a multidimensional experience. But do you know all these things? Are you able to objectively review who you are now through the lens of the choices that you've made, the lessons that you've learned, downloaded wisdom that you gleaned that got you here right now, living and breathing, listening to this talk? Have you taken full account and inventory of that? Have you done a life review, in other words, to help you cultivate and craft what it is that gives you meaning? And it doesn't even exist in that vacuum of who you've been, because you have to take into account where you are now. What do you love about life now? Do you not love anything about life now? What are you valuing now? Because I'll bet dollars to donuts, what you value now and what you prize, what you prioritize now in your life is probably very different now, or at least a little bit different than how it was 2-3 years ago, right? It might even be very different than it was 6 weeks ago or 2 days ago, right? Because this is the nature of the world, a highly, evolved process that's happening on planet Earth right now, and it's very accelerated. Our foot is on the gas pedal for accelerating into this new Earth timeline. And as I've talked about many times, it's here. We're not in anticipation of it. The new Earth timeline is here. We just haven't fully figured out how to ground it yet, make it accessible, make it practical, tangible, part of our everyday reality, which is the passion and the purpose behind the work that I do. But do you take this into account along with, well, what are your desires? Where do you want to be going? In other words. And conscious choices take into account your past, your present, and your most desirable future, your highest timeline for being, in other words. When we're making choices every day, great or small, can you say it's in alignment with the wisdom, the knowledge, the lessons you've gleaned from who you've been? What you celebrate about who you are now and how you want to keep feeling a certain way, keep going in a certain direction, and does that line up with where you are going, with who you are asking to become, with what you are most desiring to evolve into? And it's not ever a destination, because we don't ever arrive, right? We are eternal, infinite beings. We're always evolving. We're always moving. We're always shifting. We're always growing. We're always expanding. So let yourself off the hook from thinking that you arrive at any degree of achievement or success, because even that continues to evolve. We don't stop. We don't stop evolving. We don't stop growing. And taking conscious choices, making conscious choices, takes that into account as well. Are you starting to feel the expansiveness of this, of what it means to make conscious choices, what that could mean for you? When you are adept at being able to look fully at who you've been with a sense of neutrality, and this is difficult for a lot of people, when you can be with yourself in a place of stillness, where you can review rather than relive Remain the objective observer, in other words, a compassionate witness to who you've been, the choices that you have made. Because who we are at the end of the day really is, the addition of all of our choices, the sum total of all the choices and decisions that we've made. But it's still, even in that, that's not the entirety of you. That's not the wholeness of you. It's just gotten you to where you are now. And you're under no obligation to keep making the kind of choices that you made even yesterday, 2 minutes ago. You're under no obligation to do any of that stuff. And when you get used to making conscious choices for yourself, you can actually, if you feel like who you've been, and maybe you're not still in that place of stillness or neutrality with who you've been, maybe you've got regret, maybe you've got shame, maybe you've got blame, maybe you feel guilt, right? Maybe there's something you can't forgive yourself or forgive someone else for. That's not being able to look at who you are in a place of neutrality, right? So you're still going to be hanging yourself on the hook for something you did or someone else did to you. And essentially, even though it happened in the past, if you're still feeling it now, it is your now. It is your current level of experience. That's not neutrality. But when you can review who you've been, the choices that you've made, and say, okay, I see why I chose that at the time. I also see, because remember, we're in the compassionate witness energy, and we're in the objective observer, the drone footage vantage point. I can see that I made those choices. They really weren't the best for me at the time. They weren't really taking me in the direction I desired to go at the time, okay? But I can see why I made those choices. I wasn't presented with any better information at the time. I was working off of what I knew. I was working off of the information, the knowledge that was available to me at the time. That's how we get to that neutrality piece. And here's the secret sauce. When we can get to the stillness, we can get to the neutrality, we can get to this place of peace with who we've been. That's where you really make the most informed conscious choices, because then you're no longer making unconscious choices where your fear, your trauma, your wounding, your blame, your shame, your guilt, your level of unforgiveness is making the decision, not you in your wholeness. You can still take into account the way that felt. But are you also taking into account who you are now as a result of those decisions, with all this wisdom gleaned, the knowledge gained? Can you, again, roll into it, well, based on that, based on what I know about myself, based on who I am being now, how can I see that maybe there's new potentials, new possibilities opening up that are taking me or can take me in the direction I desire to be going? Conscious choices. And the rub is that we're usually not in a space that is present enough because we're too stuck in the past or too invested in a future outcome that we're attached to. That we're usually not enough in the present to be able to make a conscious choice. And you can only make conscious choices by being fully present. Having awareness of who you are in your now. That means taking into account in your now who you've been, celebrating who you are now, accepting, acknowledging, having awareness of who you are now, and being aware of who do I want to keep evolving into? What kind of trajectory am I on here that takes me in the more desirable outcome, the more desirable way of being? Conscious choices. A lot of us on the planet are really habituated to, and it's just conditioning, it's just habituation, to making unconscious choices. Reacting instead of responding. When you're able to respond, you are able to go into that objective observer, compassionate witness energy, taking in all parts and pieces of you and able to make a decision, a choice from the vantage point of all the moving parts, how they work together, how they collate to the collective of you. Because you have a collective of you too, just like we have a planetary collective of the human family, we have a collective of you. Who you've been, choices that you've made, the emotions that you feel, what you would think of as your signature personality, your values, your ethics, right? That's the collective of you. And it's really important if you want to make conscious choices to not leave anything out. Even the things that you think are the shadow bits, the wounding and the trauma that you would like very much to keep pushing away at, that you would like very much to not admit is a part of you. But the more you do that, the less conscious your choices become. Because you're denying a part of self-expression. And this is why shadow work, this is why looking at our wounding, looking at our trauma, and everyone has trauma. Everyone has trauma. We all have an original point of trauma. I call it the original cause or the core event trauma moment where we decide to separate from source. You can call it the ego's inception. Not that the ego is bad. The ego is just programming. It's part of our human software. We're meant to incorporate this, not kill it in this lifetime because, number one, that's impossible. You can't kill the ego. It's there to protect you and keep you safe. It's just sometimes that its role gets a little murky. It gets a little fuzzy on where its services are needed and where it's not required, right? And when we're asking to go somewhere, do something, be someone we haven't been before, the ego, just in its programming, just in what it's programmed to do, will kick in and try to give you advice, but it really has no idea, it has no domain or purview over who you are becoming. It can only give you advice and feedback on who you've been, or what is part of the collective experience, what is already known, in other words, as part of the collective hive mind. The ego can only give feedback, advice, experience, directives on that. It can never give you advice or information on who you are becoming. Especially if you've never tread in those waters before, you've never approached that frontier for yourself before. Of course the ego is going to swoop in and say, unsafe, ding, 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 DEFCON 5, back out, back out, back out. But those are exactly the moments we have to divest our energy from ego and stop funding that vantage point. It can't give us information about that. So we got to talk it off the ledge. Be like, hey, you know what? My coach yesterday in the class put it this way. When the ego chimes in, the inner critic, the inner judge starts wanting to offer its 2 cents, whatever. Okay, easy there, buddy. The adults in the room are talking. I love that. Because it helps us to kind of, deflate the ego a little bit, to kind of put it in its place and have it relax and have that energy kind of fall back. And the other part of you, the higher self-vantage point of you that already knows your greatness, that already knows your destiny of you being a master in the making in this lifetime, that's the part of self we want to be listening to if we endeavor to do something that we have not done before. We want to experience something we haven't done before. Take on a new challenge for ourselves. Start a new fitness program, start a new relationship even that feels more wholesome than maybe anyone we've ever had before, embark on any new project, creative opportunity, whatever it might be, right? If it's foreign to us, you can bet the ego's going to swoop in every single time, right? But it's not necessarily the part of self that we need to be listening to. And it's giving all the reins to the ego, which never works anyway, because no matter what you're doing, no matter who you're becoming, no matter what kind of success or achievement that you want, it's never going to be good enough for the ego. So take that into account too. So when you're just delegating to that part of self to make choices going forward, not in full conscious awareness mode, you're just not. If you're giving the reins over entirely to the ego, this is the part of you that is the exact part that you don't want to be listening to. You don't want to be taking advice or directives from. Do you get that? Does that make sense? So it takes practice. It takes some doing. And it really, really takes practice in the sense that we have to learn to become present. We've become so adept at being distracted, and we live in a world that has such intense degrees of sensationalism in it, constantly, like, look over here, look over here, look over here, like trying to pull and harness our energy, our attention, our awareness, our focus from us. And I will tell you that there's nothing more powerful in this lifetime and in our experience here on planet Earth than our energy. Your life force energy, literally what you use to focus, give attention to, have, awareness of, you're giving your vital life force energy, the most valuable thing you'll ever possess, towards things that are constantly trying to say, like, hey, look over here, no, look over here. Here's the fear, here's the fear, here's what you should be afraid of now, here's what you got to keep your eyes on now, here's what you have to worry about now. The reason these tactics work so well and make you feel so depleted and makes you feel so hopeless is because you're allowing your energy to be harnessed by, the next best available disaster, or the, next worst case scenario, whatever that might be. And if you're the boss of you, if you're in control of your own energy, you can say, yeah, not opting into that. I see this little trickery. I see you guys do this all the time. I don't need to buy into that. I don't need to believe it. And if you are allowing yourself to be kind of hoodwinked or swindled into that kind of energy that is defeatist, that makes us feel like there is rampant division and separation, that there's this kind of hopelessness or whatever, if you constantly are funding your energy towards that, you are not going to be making conscious choices either, right? If you're not in control of the most powerful thing that you have, and by the way, the only thing you actually have control of, which is your own energy, your own frequency, your own vibration, you are in control of these things. You're not in control of anything else that you perceive as outside of you, but you're always in control of your inner experience. What belief, what feeling, what way of thinking are you allowing yourself to put your attention on, to align with, in other words? That's the only control you ever have. And that's why it is the most powerful thing. And that's why those who would hold us back from the ascension process are constantly trying to sensationalize all the horror and terror in the world, so that you'll keep putting your attention off of yourself and onto something that really is illusory, actually, and can only exist by the fact that we put our attention on it. Because that's the nature of 3D reality. This is a realm of impermanence. Everything here has an expiration date. Everything here is impermanent by its nature of being able to exist in a 3D reality. This is an illusory realm. And the only things that feel real, feel like they exist, feel really tangible and heavy and dense, etc., is because as a human family, as a collective, we are collectively deciding to put our attention on it and believe that it's real. Right? And this is how powerful it is. Your own personal energetic real estate that you are the realtor for always, which is your energy, your frequency, your vibration. That's the power to fund anything that's false or illusory in this timeline, but it's also the power to fund something that is part of this illusion, but you can make it work for you instead of against you. Okay? You get to use the illusion here of 3D just like everyone else does. But the problem is we allow ourselves to buy into the illusion of lack, which is probably the most pervasive, most powerful illusion here on planet Earth in this 3D time space. Because if we take that objective observer vantage point and go into that kind of drone footage of looking at all the moving parts of our life and the world at large, we'll see that there's only abundance. We live in an abundant universe. We're not lacking for anything. This construct of lack is really only exclusive to 3D and 4D. Outside of that, it doesn't exist. It's not an energy that can be supported. It's not a vibration that has any alignment outside of 4D. Yet it's a very powerful illusion here. And we often view our lives through this lens of lack and what we don't have, what we can't have, what we won't have, what we feel we don't deserve, right? What someone else who's better than us has and we don't have. You know? Well, I wasn't born for that. I didn't come up from that. I never meant to have that. Why am I so unloved? Why am I so unsupported? Why am I broke all the time? Like, we are constantly creating and identifying ourselves through a lens of lack, right? And even when we think we're making a choice that is taking us in a direction that's better for us, more available, more desirable timeline, what we're often doing is making unconscious choices, even though we think we're making conscious choices, because we're still looking at our life through what we don't have yet, who we aren't yet, what I haven't achieved yet, what I haven't accessed in my life yet, superficial or otherwise. And when we keep self-identifying and defining our reality through this lens, this perception of lack, you also can't make conscious choices. How can it be fully conscious if you're making decisions based on an illusory construct? Right? And lack might feel very real for you, but when you think about it, how much time and energy have you spent on focusing on that in your life? Constantly looking at your life and all the moving parts of your life through a lens of lack. Anything you invest most of your attention, awareness, align your frequency with, is going to become your reality. So that's why lack feels very real for you. But if you decide to start focusing on something else, focusing on the things that are working out in your life, the achievements that you have made, where you can kind of prove to your ego that you have achieved something, you do have a modicum of success, whatever that might be, great or small, it doesn't matter. It does help to kind of quiet the voice of the ego and let the adults in the room keep talking, right? But more importantly, it's about what frequency you're aligning to. If you decide to opt away from aligning your frequency, your vibration with lack all the time, and instead, what is working out? What have I achieved? Why am I right here, right now? You're still breathing. You're still drawing breath. Your heart's still pumping blood. That means you've done some things right to get here. And in fact, it means that you've done more things right than you have done things wrong. Correct? Start there. I woke up, my eyes opened, and I was able to greet another day. That means that the sum total of you is making choices that are right for your survival and growth. And those are outweighing the ones that are wrong, or what you think of are wrong, right? Start there. Start there. You want to build on that? Because evolution, spiritual growth, awakening, enlightenment is all about choosing the next best available vibration, choosing the next best available frequency. You want to make even more conscious choices? You want to create even more awareness and the fulfillment that goes along with that? Great. Move into gratitude then. That's the next best available vibration. What's working out? What are the choices that I've made that got me here? So I could have blood pump through my heart another day. So that I could live another day and tell my family members I love them. So that I could live another day and enjoy the sunshine on my face. So that I could live another day, finding new and creative ways to align with my goal, align with my ambitions, align with my drive. So I could live another day and experience the love I feel, the beauty I feel on planet Earth, the abundance I feel on planet Earth. It's all about where you want to place your awareness, your attention, and your focus. It's not that abundance isn't always there. It's always there. But are you choosing to align with that frequency? Because when you do, you see more of it. If you're choosing to align with lack, that's what you're going to see more of. If you choose to align with abundance, that's what you're going to see more of. A conscious choice that you make from the more evolved version of you, taking into account all the moving parts of you, the collective of you and your inner reality, and everything that you've been to get you here, who you are now, and who you're desiring to become. When you're making choices from that level of you, the wholeness, the fullness of you, you're going to make choices that align with abundance. That's just how it works. And even if this feels like a really distant goal for you, if it feels like something that's so far away from where you are right now, where are you putting your focus, attention, and awareness on? If you're putting the awareness on, well, I could see that, but I'm lacking it now. You cannot create more abundance from that level. You are creating more lack from that level. So the responsibility, the accountability is always on you. What do you want your inner experience to be? Because that's always going to set the template for what you're going to align with. Which I'm really on a roll here. Okay, I'm back. Ooh, and I came back at 44:44. Crazy, or not so crazy. But if you're taking into account all of that when you're making your decisions, you're going to align with abundance. Your inner experience is something you choose. It is something you decide. Because every day is going to present you with fresh challenges, triggers, opportunities that are, going to ruffle your feathers or put you in a place where you feel hurt, put upon. And as I'm always saying to my members in alignment program, it doesn't have to mean anything unless you allow it to. And that always goes back to the principle of what are you dictating that your inner experience is going to be? If you say right now, you make the decision and the conscious choice right now to say, I'm no longer available for that. That's a great place to start. Maybe you don't know what you really want, but I guarantee everyone watching here knows what they don't want. We never want to stay with what we don't want. It's really just a stepping stone. It's how we climb the ladder towards what it is that we do truly desire. So right now, you have an awareness of, I guarantee it, what you don't want. It could be something that's happening in your individual experience. It could be something that's happening in the world at large. What is it? Name it. I can no longer afford that as part of my inner experience. I can no longer be available for that frequency as part of my inner experience. You get to decide. And when I talk about being a master in the making, it's about remembering that as the most evolved versions of ourselves, if there is a destination, if there is an arrival point of that, it's that we make decisions and choices that always align with love. And another way to say love is wholeness, fullness. A sense of expansion instead of contraction. Choices that go with ourselves instead of against ourselves. Unconscious decisions, and we can see where we've made them in our lives before, where maybe we're continuing to make them, means we are making choices that go against ourselves. And these can be the smallest things. But every single time you do it, it's like a micro commitment that you're making to your own self-betrayal. It could even be, your friend calls you up and says, hey, I need you to really come out with me tonight. I'm having a crappy week. I'm having a crappy time, whatever that is. And you want to be there for your friend, but you have something that you have set up that is a commitment to yourself. It's helping you work towards your goal, whatever you are endeavoring to do that's taking you into a higher timeline, a higher way of being, whatever it is. And you dedicated the time, you made the commitment, you prioritized this time for yourself to do this thing. And as much as you want to be there for your friend, and you can be, it doesn't mean that you can't be there for your friend in another way at another time. But if you don't give yourself this time that you committed to, prioritized for yourself, made important for you enough to set time in your schedule for it, if you don't do that thing, it's a little form of self-betrayal. The conscious choice in that situation would be, you know what, I only have this time to do this right now, and I want to be there for you. I can help you. I can be here for you the next day. We can go out tomorrow night. It can be an afternoon phone call. I got an hour and a half tomorrow. Let's talk it out. Let me help you, right? But tonight, I'm committed to this. And you don't even have to tell them what it is. But if you're strong enough in your boundaries and you realize how important it is that your inner experience is aligned with a frequency that you want to experience, if you keep making unconscious decisions like that, it's a kind of self-betrayal. It is a level of self-abandonment, in other words. Not a conscious choice. And a lot of us do this a lot. We can do it with our families, we do it with our friends, we can do it with our coworkers, we can do it in the workplace, right? There's all kinds of opportunities to betray ourselves. But there's also all kinds of opportunities to make good on the commitments and the promises to ourselves, to align with what it is that we want to have as our inner experience. I want to have my inner experience be one of, I'm in integrity and I'm in authenticity and I'm genuinely being who I am. That sometimes means speaking an uncomfortable truth that someone else can interpret from their level of wounding, from their level of trauma, from their level of hurt as something that's unwholesome to them. That is not my responsibility. My ultimate responsibility aligns with, what do I want my inner experience to be? And if I remain true to the core truth of who I am with that, the core truth of who I am is my values, what gives me meaning, my purpose, my mission, as it aligns with my vocation or doesn't, personal and professional. You know, what gives me joy, what lights me up, what is my passion? Also, what are my boundaries? What do I say no to? What am I no longer available for? If I am committed to having my inner experience be aligned with that core truth of me, which is all those things I just mentioned, then I can show up in the world and be in integrity and be in authenticity and be living in my truth. Because your truth is different from my truth. It doesn't mean they can't have a beautiful marriage with each other. In fact, we can find each other better and we can actually walk each other home if we're all living at the level of our own core truth. We've just bought into this idea that that means we have to live in division or separation. Actually, it doesn't. In the New Earth perspective, in a higher timeline perspective, if we're all living at the level of integrity, of being aligned with our core truth, we actually get along a lot fucking better. Because we can have this stillness in our inner experience where that person's core truth does not step on the eggshells of my core truth. It doesn't interfere with mine at all. And in fact, I can respect and compassionately witness that person in their core truth because they're living it, they're killing it at life, they're in their integrity and they're in their authenticity. Then I can have nothing but respect and compassion for that person. When I see people like that in the world, and I experience people like this in my community, my peers, clients, I see people like this all the time. Not everyone is like me, and I don't want everyone to be like me. That's fucking boring. I love the diversity on this planet, and the reason why I can have this level of inner experience of I can accept that, I can acknowledge that for what it is, and it doesn't have to trigger me. I can be in stillness with it, I can have neutrality around it. Because that person is working with the best information they have available to them at that time. It doesn't have to reflect on me. It doesn't have to mean anything to me. Ultimately, it doesn't mean anything for me because I don't allow it to, right? Right, in alignment members? Is this starting to make sense? And if I'm living at that level of myself every day and I make that commitment and dedication, that my inner experience gets to be rock solid. Because I know when I'm in this kind of peace and stillness and acceptance of myself, fully, totally, completely, all the moving parts of me, past, present, and future, then anything that doesn't align with that frequency, it simply kind of bounces off. It doesn't affect me. I'm not available for anything less than this frequency. So it doesn't have to hold any meaning for me. Even when I'm witnessing someone who's incredibly triggered, even if I'm witnessing someone who's incredibly wounded, it still doesn't have to mean anything for me unless I allow it to. And how many people can say that on this planet? But I will tell you this. This is our destiny, to be able to get to this as the human family. This is what it means to anchor the New Earth timeline. It's here. We're experiencing it. It's there. It's not this nebulous thing that we're expecting in our anticipation of. It's here. We just haven't grounded it yet. And the only way we ground anything is by what we collectively put our energy, attention, awareness, and focus on as a human family. And if we put our energy, attention, awareness, and focus on being able to compassionately witness others, being able to accept and acknowledge others for living at the core truth of who they are, with the best information they have available to them at the moment, then we can leave each other the fuck alone. Right? And not nitpick and, henpick every little thing about everyone else, and we can stop being so goddamn offended all the time by what everyone else is doing. It's really just another form of distraction and another way of putting the attention off of where you are not guaranteeing and dedicating yourself to that inner peace, that inner experience that you desire to have. Right? Our destiny is being able to make better, more informed, higher conscious decisions on this planet. And we can only and ever do this if we are cultivating this inner experience of peace, of stillness, of neutrality within. That's meaning being okay with who you are, faults, peculiarities, and all. And also being able to focus on what is working. This allows us to make conscious choices as well. When we're focusing on what is working, we are putting our attention and awareness on abundance. We're putting our attention, awareness, and focus on something that may feel a little different. It's going to be triggering at first because we're so used to putting our attention, awareness, and focus on lack. But it's just habituation. It's just the illusion that we decided to hook into and opt into and put the valuable energetic real estate of our frequency, decided to put our attention on that. We don't have to do it. We don't have to keep making that decision. We don't have to keep staying in that habit. So what will it take for you to be more conscious? Well, what gives you meaning? And in order to say, what gives you meaning, what are your values? What do you want to feel every day? What lights you up? What gives you joy? Do you even know what that is? Going back to the very beginning of this call here. What are your principles? What are your ethics? What's like a hard pass, a hard no for you? What is it that makes you want to set the boundaries that you set with other people? What do you prize? What is your heart's desire? What is the highest destiny for you that you can see right now from the vantage point of where you are? What's the next best available vibration of you? Is it you being in gratitude? Is it you being in abundance? Whatever that is. What gives you meaning? And until you can fully evaluate that, examine it, name it, and claim it for yourself, you can't say in full integrity and full authenticity that you are making conscious choices. And as I've mentioned, this is the benchmark. It's an incredible tool, but it's also an incredible way of being that establishes and anchors and grounds this New Earth timeline that takes us further into unity consciousness. Do you know how to make conscious choices? Do you know how to suss out, name what it is that gives you meaning? Are you able to, even with doing that, live in alignment with the values of that, the principles of that, the frequency of that inner experience every single day, and make your choices by that touchstone? So I have an entire program called In Alignment and Thriving. If you want to know how to make conscious choices, if you want to be able to live at the core truth of you, if you want to understand what it is to live in alignment with the New Earth timeline, evolve your awakening process, your enlightenment process towards living in a level of unity consciousness, because unity consciousness can never be experienced on a collective level unless we first experience it within. Everything I'm talking about here, this inner experience of peace, that's unity consciousness within. And everything is inside out. There really is no external experience, because everything that we would call our experience is something that always is inside of us. It's an inner realization. It's an inner coherence. So we can never hope to affect anything that we think of as external unless we first feel it, align with it internally. And unity consciousness is being able to reunite, reclaim all those parts of self, especially the ones you pushed away at because you deemed them lesser than. You deemed them as shadow bits. You deemed them as your trauma, your wounding, etc. The things you don't want to look at. The things you don't want to acknowledge. These are the exact parts of you that without acknowledgement, without acceptance, are going to be the parts of you that are leading your life. And it'll be unconscious. And you'll keep making unconscious choices from whatever part is the strongest of you. And to the degree that we hold shadow and anything that aligns with lack within, this is going to be the strongest part of you. And that will be the part of you that's always making choices in your life. Are you willing to call those pieces back home into wholeness? Are you willing to call them back into a place of love, acceptance, acknowledgement? Because if you don't, they remain the parts of you that you continue to judge. And it's also the touchstone by which you continue to judge others outside of you. Experiences outside of you, scenarios, situations, events outside of you. And we can see where that's gotten us to be in this level of judgment, this level of othering. And the only reason we experience that in the collective is because we're doing it to ourselves first. There's something, some part of you, probably parts, plural of you, that you are othering. Not me, not me, not me. How could anything that you ever have awareness of not be part of you? Right? So, In Alignment and Thriving Core Program is incredibly powerful. This is transformation with a capital T. This is not for people who are like looky-loos and just kind of want to dabble in their experience and aren't willing to commit and dedicate themselves to this 11-week process. This is for the self-led person who understands how important it is if they want to do anything in the world, anything they endeavor to do, first, the foundation must be having the best relationship you can possibly have with yourself. Because that's the only one that really matters. That's what this program is all about. It goes very, very deep. It is a very, very deep dive process into looking at those shadow bits of you, those parts you would push away at, have pushed away at, continue to push away at, the things you say, yeah, tomorrow I'll deal with that. Not important right now. I guarantee you those are the most important parts of you. Because they are the parts of you that are not allowing you to feel wholeness. It's never that you're not whole. You're always whole. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. And in the cosmic version of you, the master self version of you, you are whole. But the problem is we don't feel wholeness. And in order to feel wholeness, it's about taking that inner inventory, doing that life review, looking at all the moving parts and pieces of you, even most of the unsavory ones, and saying, but this is me. This is me. Because even those unsavory bits got you here. They're not to be discounted. And in fact, there's an incredible amount of energy, creative mana in those pieces that now exist in void energy or shadow energy. But when we do this work together, you get to transmute that. In other words, you roll over that incredible amount of energetic potential towards what it is that you are striving to do, who it is you're striving to become. And this is all part of the In Alignment and Thriving Core program. You do not come out of this program the same person if you show up and do the work. I have had some people back out of this program because they just weren't ready for it. And that's okay. There's no judgment in that. But if you are ready for this level of work, This is the ultimate guide and navigation program where I get to walk you back home to yourself. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's absolutely true. It doesn't negate the fact that it's absolutely true. So if you are inclined to come and join us in this program, there are payment plans, but you should know that the early bird pricing on this program expires on the 28th of this month. So if you join now, you'll save $300. There are payment plans. You can do that as well. It's so worth it to be able to fully get to know yourself, because a lot of people on this planet, maybe even you, have a difficult time claiming that, knowing the fullness of themselves, knowing who you are in your entirety. So that's what this program offers to you. If you are going to be joining us, on an end note here, if you're going to be joining us for the Boldly Free Summit. So the Boldly Free live virtual summit is taking place right here in the We Are New Earth group. If you're watching this video elsewhere, you can simply tap in We Are New Earth in Facebook and you will see this group and you can join all the live presentations for the summit. We've got over 30 presenters over 3 days, starting on February 25th, which is next Friday. We start at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern. We've got over 30 presenters presenting on all things spiritual awakening, all things enlightenment, all things ascension, things from the very practical, like teachings and wisdoms and coaching, to people who are going to be offering activations and very, very powerful energetic journeys, guided journeys. We've got something for everyone in this summit. I'm so excited to present it and host it for you. When I have offered these free live virtual summits in the past, it's been an opportunity to bring people together, to bring groups of people together, enhance our community, because we always add new members in the group. We've got over 1,500 members in this group. Hopefully all of them will attend this summit. We always add more people right before the summit begins, and that's very exciting. It's an opportunity to meet new people that maybe you'd like to work with, as a coach or a mentor, or, from everything. You've got people who are incredible oracle intuitives. You've got incredible Reiki masters. You've got incredible spiritual teachers, way showers, placeholders for the new earth in this group. Really, really outstanding experience, and it's all free. It's all free. And I can tell you from offering these summits in the past, because I've offered 3 in the past, what happens is you've got something that adds up to a collective activation for the entire community and for the entire group. And it's so, so powerful, because all the presenters really bring their A game. They bring their highest level of their gifts, their skill sets, their abilities, and their talents, and they bring it to you all for free. So please come and support all these people. I will actually put, even if you're on my YouTube channel, a link to the We Are New Earth group, so you can join in there. At the bottom of this post, I'm going to have the full schedule of presenters who are going to be presenting for the We Are New Earth group. If you want to see that on my Instagram post or my Facebook page, just go to Catherine Massell on Instagram or Facebook, and you'll be able to see that in there as well. But please come and join this incredible event. And if you do, on Saturday, I'm going to be presenting in the group. I'm going to be kicking off with our intro ceremony at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Friday the 25th. But I am also going to be closing the ceremony and kind of consecrating the space on the final day, which is Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be closing the space after the summit and grounding all the energy there. But I'm going to be doing a presentation on creating mental resilience for the new earth, because we are moving into a different way of being able to use not only our emotional intelligence, but our mental capabilities to align with, anchor, and ground the new earth. And so I'm going to be giving a very powerful talk on Saturday about that. And if you give me a second here, I can tell you what time that's going to be on Saturday, the 26th. It's actually going to be at 11 a.m. on Saturday, 11 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday, where I'm going to be doing my talk, Mental Resilience and Earth's Transition. And I'm going to be offering a very special 24-hour option for that. In promotion of In Alignment and Thriving. But if you want to get in now, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be any cheaper, but there will be a VIP option added to that, which is a very, very powerful opportunity to work with me one-on-one as a value-added option. And that's only going to be a 24-hour offering when I do my presentation on 11 a.m. on the 26th of Saturday in this group. So get in the In Alignment and Thriving Core program if you feel this kind of dedication to self. You want to step up and commit to who you truly are. You want to know yourself in the fullness of you. And you want to be able to make conscious decisions in your life every single day with decisions, choices great and small, from the core truth of who you are. This is your program. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for giving me a portion of your Friday. Have an amazing weekend. Make sure if you're not watching this in the We Are New Earth group, that you join the We Are New Earth group. Get yourself the schedule, download it, mark off your favorite presenters and topics so that you can mark your calendar and get ready and be there for the live presentations. All the presentations are a half hour long. They all take place right in the We Are New Earth group, so you don't have to find any Zoom link or anything like that. So lots of love and peace to you all. Mwah. Bye-bye.